There comes a moment in a woman's life when she realizes she has no friend to turn to, and the silence feels heavy. But in Islam, this silence is not abandonment. It is a divine invitation. Sometimes Allah removes people from your path so you can finally hear His guidance without distraction. In that solitude, He teaches you that your worth is not defined by who stands beside you, but by the one who sustains you. A woman with no friend is not alone. She is being gently pulled toward the one who understands her thoughts before she speaks them, the one who fills the heart with strength, healing, and a companionship that never leaves. There are seasons in a woman's life when she looks around and sees that every seat beside her is empty. People she trusted drifted away. Friendships she once leaned on grew distant, and the conversations that used to comfort her faded into silence. At first, this emptiness feels like a wound, a sharp reminder that she is walking without the companionship she longed for. But what she does not always understand is that loneliness is not simply the absence of people, it is the awakening of the soul. It is a divine invitation to return to the one who has always been waiting for her, the one who has never left her side, the one who knows every ache she hides even from herself. When Allah allows loneliness to unfold in a woman's life, it is rarely a punishment. It is a call. A softly whispered reminder that her heart was not created to depend on people, but to find its anchor in something far more eternal. A woman with no friends often feels that she is somehow incomplete, as if her story is lacking a chapter everyone else seems to have. She watches others laugh together, share secrets, celebrate joys, and support one another through pain, and she wonders why her own life is not mirrored with the same connections. She may ask herself if she has failed in some unseen way, if her personality is flawed, or if she simply does not deserve companionship. But the truth she has not yet discovered is that Allah sometimes clears the path around her so that nothing distracts her from her own transformation. People may leave, but their absence becomes the space where growth begins. Hearts that once depended on others begin to depend on the Creator. And in that shift, something extraordinary happens. The woman begins to rise. She rises because solitude teaches her to see herself without the noise of comparison. It teaches her to sit with her emotions, to look at them honestly, and to understand them deeply. She starts realizing she has spent years pouring into others without ever learning how to pour into herself. She starts noticing the fatigue she overlooked, the pain she avoided, the dreams she silenced, the prayers she delayed. Loneliness becomes a mirror that reflects everything she buried beneath busyness and distractions. And as she faces this reflection, she discovers parts of herself she never knew existed. She finds strength where she expected weakness, resilience where she expected collapse, clarity where she expected confusion. This inner awakening is not born from comfort, it is born from stillness. And stillness is one of the most sacred gifts Allah gives. When a woman walks alone, she learns the art of listening. She begins to hear the quiet thoughts she once ignored. She begins to notice the subtle guidance Allah sends her through signs, whispers of intuition, moments of reflection, verses she stumbles upon at just the right time. Du'as that open doors she didn't know existed. Her heart becomes more sensitive, more aware, more spiritually alive. Loneliness slows her life down just enough for her to finally feel the presence of the one who has been holding her through every step. She realizes that companionship with Allah fills the very spaces human friendships could never reach. A woman with no friends must understand that her loneliness is not accidental, it is purposeful. There are friendships she desired that would have destroyed her peace. There are people she loved who would have pulled her away from her path. There are social circles she prayed for that would have drained her spiritually, emotionally, and mentally. Allah does not withhold without reason. He does not remove without replacing with something greater. And no matter how difficult it is to believe, every separation hides a protection. Every empty space hides a lesson. Every silence hides a transformation. Allah sees the things she cannot see. He hears the conversations she never heard. He knows the intentions she never recognized. So when he removes someone, it is never random. It is mercy disguised as loneliness. As the woman journeys through this season without friends, she begins to understand her own value more deeply. She learns that friends should add to her life, not control it. They should inspire her, not drain her. They should support her growth, not stunt it. She stops settling for shallow companionship simply to avoid feeling alone. She starts choosing connection that aligns with her purpose, friendships that nourish her faith, relationships that reflect sincerity rather than convenience. This shift is impossible without solitude, for only in solitude does she learn what she truly needs from people and what she can no longer accept. The woman also begins to realize that sometimes she was never truly lonely. She was simply surrounded by the wrong people. People who talked but never listened. People who used her kindness but never reciprocated. People who walked beside her in good seasons but disappeared in difficult ones. When Allah removes such people, it feels like loss, but in reality, it is detox. The heart cannot elevate when it is attached to people who keep it stagnant. And so loneliness becomes the doorway to purification. It washes the heart from unhealthy attachments and prepares it for connections built on sincerity and faith. In this journey, the woman learns a powerful truth. Not everyone deserves access to her heart. Her time, her energy, her emotional space, they are all precious gifts. Not every person is meant to carry them. Loneliness teaches her to become selective, intentional, and discerning. She stops chasing people and starts attracting the right ones simply by becoming aligned with her true purpose. She realizes that friendships built on faith do not require constant presence. They require genuine hearts. They are not measured by frequency, but by sincerity. They are not maintained by effort alone, but by Allah's barakah placed within them. The woman also learns to embrace her own company. She finds peace in simple moments, reading, journaling, reflecting, praying, sitting in quiet corners, watching the sunrise, feeling the breeze. These moments become her sanctuary. They become the spaces where she rebuilds herself. She no longer fears silence, she finds healing in it. She no longer fears solitude, she finds guidance within it. She no longer feels broken for having no friends, she feels chosen. Chosen to rediscover herself. Chosen to strengthen her connection with Allah. Chosen to heal from the inside out. As her heart softens and strengthens at the same time, she begins to trust Allah more deeply. She understands that every chapter of her life is written with wisdom. Every delay carries a blessing. Every separation carries a lesson. Every lonely night carries a hidden dua being answered. She learns to walk with gratitude instead of bitterness, with faith instead of fear, with hope instead of loneliness. Her du'as become calmer. Her thoughts become clearer. Her soul becomes lighter. She begins to understand that she was never truly friendless. She had the most loyal companion all along. Slowly, almost quietly, Allah begins to introduce new people into her life. Not many, just the ones meant for her. People who see her heart, people who honor her boundaries, people who remind her of Allah, people who bring ease instead of chaos. These friendships feel different. They feel deeper, safer, purer. She appreciates them more because she knows what it means to walk alone. She cherishes them more because they came after she healed. And she values them more because she understands now that companionship is not about quantity, but about authenticity. This entire journey transforms the woman from within. She becomes more grounded, more emotionally intelligent, more spiritually aware. She stops searching for validation through others and finds it in her relationship with Allah. She stops needing constant attention and finds peace in being unseen by people, but fully seen by her Creator. She stops fearing being alone because she has tasted the strength that grows from solitude. Her heart becomes a place where trust in Allah outweighs the need for worldly attachment. And when she finally steps into the next season of her life, she carries with her the wisdom gained from walking alone. She knows now that loneliness was not a void, it was a classroom. It was the space where Allah rewrote her identity, rebalanced her emotions, and rebuilt her strength. She walks forward with dignity because she knows who holds her heart. She walks forward with confidence because she knows Allah is always near. And she walks forward with peace because she understands that companionship is a blessing, but reliance belongs only to the one who never leaves. A woman who walks through life without friends often begins to question her own value. She wonders if something within her is missing, something flawed, something that makes people unable to stay. She looks at her reflection and sees not the beauty Allah placed in her, but the emptiness created by the absence of companionship. And in these moments, she starts measuring her worth by who chooses to walk beside her and who does not. But the truth she has not yet uncovered is that her value has never been tied to the number of people who call her, the number of friends who gather around her, or the number of souls who understand her. Her worth was written long before anyone's opinion existed. Her worth was sealed by the one who molded her from a place of divine love, breathed life into her soul, and fashioned her heart with intention and purpose. When Allah created the human heart, He created it with the capacity to feel deeply, to love sincerely, and to seek connection. But He also created it to find its ultimate anchor in Him alone. Friends are a blessing, companionship is a mercy, but neither is the foundation of a woman's worth. A woman's worth comes from her Creator, not from creation. When she forgets this truth, she begins to look for validation through the behavior of people. She begins to chase approval, to fear rejection, to interpret silence as inadequacy. But when she remembers that Allah is the one who crafted her soul, her value becomes rooted in something unshakable. No friend's absence can diminish it. No social circle's exclusion can erase it. No person's misunderstanding can distort it. A woman with no friends often carries a quiet heaviness in her chest. It is the weight of believing she is less than others, the burden of believing she is forgotten, the fear that she does not matter. She scrolls through pictures of others gathered together, laughing, bonding, living in a companionship she longs for, and she wonders why she is not included. She wonders if her voice lacks sweetness, if her presence lacks warmth, if her personality lacks charm. She begins to internalize the absence of people as a verdict against her worth. Yet Allah, in His infinite mercy, sometimes places her in solitude so she can unearth the truth that her value is far too sacred to be determined by the unstable affection of human beings. People change, circumstances change, friendships shift, hearts evolve. But Allah's love and the worth He assigned her do not waver. Her worth is eternal because it was given by the eternal. Her worth is unchanging because it was written by the one who never changes. Her worth is sanctified because it was shaped by the one who calls Himself Al-Latif, the most gentle, the one who knows the subtle details of her heart better than she ever could. When she finally begins to understand this, her heart starts to unburden itself from the weight of comparison. She no longer ties her sense of self to whether people choose her. She no longer measures her soul by the size of her social circle. She begins to see herself as Allah sees her, not through the lens of societal expectations, but through the lens of divine intentionality. She becomes aware that she was created as a complete human being, not a half waiting to be completed by others. She learns that her soul was never meant to be defined by relationships that come and go. There is a clarity that unfolds when a woman understands that friendships do not determine her worth. They reflect the season Allah places her in. When she is meant to grow internally, He surrounds her with silence. When she is meant to learn resilience, He removes the people she relied on. When she is meant to stand on her own, He teaches her self-sufficiency. When she is meant to deepen her faith, He gives her solitude. Nothing is random. Nothing is meaningless. Every shift in her relationships is part of a divine script written uniquely for her heart's evolution. And when she finally realizes this, she begins to see her loneliness not as a deficiency, but as alignment. alignment with Allah's wisdom, alignment with her spiritual growth, alignment with her future self. A woman with no friends learns, often painfully, that people cannot be the foundation of her identity. People, even the kindest ones, are imperfect. They misunderstand, they forget, they disappoint, they get busy, they change. But Allah is constant. He never leaves, never forgets, never gets tired of hearing her voice, never needs space, never grows distant. When she speaks to him, he listens. When she cries to him, he responds. When she seeks him, he opens doors she never expected. Her worth becomes unshakable because it is rooted in the one relationship that cannot break. And when her heart anchors itself in that relationship, something shifts inside her. She becomes emotionally stronger, more spiritually connected, more confident in her identity. She begins to understand that friendships are a gift, but they are not the definition of a fulfilled life. She realizes that many people who have circles of friends still feel alone. Many people who are surrounded by companions still feel unseen. Many people who appear socially rich are emotionally starved. Friendship is not the cure for emptiness. Connection with Allah is. And the woman who learns this becomes free. Free from the pressure to please. Free from the fear of being left out. Free from the chains of seeking validation through others. She becomes content with who she is, content with what Allah has written, content with the pace of her own journey. Her heart begins to soften in new ways. She realizes she does not need to prove her worth to anyone. She does not need to shrink herself to fit into places where she does not belong. She does not need to chase people who only appreciate her when it is convenient. She learns to walk with a quiet confidence, knowing that she is seen by the one whose gaze matters most. She starts honoring her own boundaries, protecting her peace, valuing her time, and nurturing her spiritual life. These are things companionship does not always permit, but solitude often demands. As she grows, she becomes more drawn to people who reflect sincerity, authenticity, and compassion. She realizes she desires not quantity but quality, not loud company but soulful connection, not temporary friends but meaningful relationships. And because she is no longer trying to prove her worth, she attracts people who see her value without being convinced. She becomes the kind of woman who does not beg for friendship but inspires it, not because she is desperate for connection, but because she radiates peace and strength. A woman who knows her worth becomes magnetic. Her calmness draws others. Her faith inspires them. Her resilience encourages them. Her sincerity comforts them. And without chasing, she begins to receive friendships that are aligned with her soul. Yet even as new people enter her life, she never forgets the lesson she learned in her solitude. She understands now that the presence of friends is a blessing, but their absence is not a curse. She knows that friendships add joy, but they do not create purpose. She knows that people can walk with her, but they cannot walk her path for her. She knows that she can love deeply, but she must never attach herself to the point of losing who she is. She knows that Allah writes every relationship with intention, and every relationship ends or continues with wisdom. Her heart becomes mature enough to love without clinging, to care without losing herself, and to give without expecting in return. This maturity becomes one of her greatest strengths. She stops asking, "Why don't I have friends?" and begins asking, "What is Allah teaching me?" She stops feeling ashamed of her solitude and starts embracing the peace it brings. She stops looking at companionship as a measure of value and begins seeing it as a gift to be cherished, not depended upon. This shift transforms her. It elevates her. It frees her from the chains of emotional dependency and brings her into a state of spiritual independence. She walks with her head held high, not because she has many people supporting her, but because she finally understands that being supported by Allah is the greatest strength she could ever possess. As she continues this journey, she realizes that her worth was never small. It was simply hidden under layers of fear, doubt, insecurity, and past hurt. Loneliness did not reduce her worth. Loneliness revealed it. it revealed her resilience, her depth, her capacity to grow, her desire to be authentic, her longing to connect with her Creator in ways she never had time for before. She sees now that solitude did not expose weakness, it exposed potential. It showed her the parts of herself she had ignored while trying to fit into places she had outgrown. It taught her who she truly is when the noise fades, when the crowds disappear, when the world goes quiet. And in that quiet, she finds herself. She finds Allah, she finds peace, she finds clarity, she finds strength, she finds the truth that her worth is fixed, eternal, unchanging, immovable. Not because of who stays with her, but because of who created her. Not because of who chooses her, but because of who wrote her story. Not because of the presence of friendships, but because of the presence of the one who never leaves. There are moments in a woman's life when solitude wraps around her like a cloak she never asked to wear. She sits alone in a room where the silence speaks louder than any conversation she could have had. The absence of friends becomes a constant echo, reminding her that her journey is unfolding in a way she never imagined. But slowly, in ways she does not immediately understand, solitude begins to shift from something painful to something profound. What once felt like isolation begins to feel like a sacred space, a space where she is not abandoned, but invited into a deeper relationship with herself, with her heart, with her Creator. A woman with no friends learns early on how to fill her own silence. She learns how to sit with her thoughts, to hear them, to understand them, to challenge them, to transform them. She learns that when the world becomes quiet, the soul becomes loud. Her emotions rise to the surface. Old wounds, forgotten memories, unmet needs, buried prayers. She finally has time to see herself, really see herself, without the distraction of others. Solitude becomes a mirror that shows her what she has avoided for years. And though this mirror can feel heavy at first, it becomes the starting point of healing. Healing begins when a woman stops running from herself. As she walks deeper into her solitude, she discovers something unexpected. She begins to hear the voice of her own heart more clearly. She begins to hear her instincts, her intuition, the whispers of truth she ignored while trying to accommodate others. She begins to understand what exhausts her, what inspires her, what wounds her, what uplifts her. Self-awareness blossoms in the stillness. It is in the quiet moments that she realizes how much she has tolerated, how much she has suppressed, how much she has silenced to keep peace with others. Solitude becomes the place where she reclaims her voice. She begins to see that solitude is not a punishment. It is a purification, a cleansing of noise, pressure, distraction, and dependency. Allah, in His wisdom, sometimes removes the people she relied on so she can see the parts of herself hidden beneath layers of social expectations. Solitude strips away the masks she had to wear. It removes the pressure to impress, to fit in, to be understood. In solitude, she can simply be, and in simply being, she discovers the authenticity she lost while trying to belong. Her heart begins to unfold in new ways. She begins to feel things she never allowed herself to feel. She realizes she has been carrying unresolved pain, betrayals, disappointments, childhood wounds, heartbreaks she never addressed. In companionship, these pains were easy to hide, but in solitude, they surface, not to hurt her, but to heal her. Allah brings these emotions forward so she can finally acknowledge them, release them, transform them. Emotional healing is not easy, but it is sacred. Tears become dua, silence becomes therapy, reflection becomes medicine, and gradually she feels lighter. Solitude also deepens her relationship with Allah when there are no friends to turn to, no shoulders to lean on, no voices to comfort her. She turns to the one who created comfort. She begins to speak to Allah with an honesty she never used before. She cries to Him in whispers. She talks to Him in the quiet of the night. She shares her fears, her loneliness, her hopes, her dreams. She discovers the sweetness of being heard by the one who already knows every detail of her heart. Her du'as become deeper, her prayers become more heartfelt, her faith becomes more intimate. She realizes that solitude is often Allah's invitation to return to Him, not out of obligation, but out of love. There is a tranquility that comes from realizing that Allah is not just near, but intimately close. She begins to feel supported in her solitude, protected in her loneliness, accompanied in her silence. She begins to see signs, small yet powerful moments where Allah shows her that she is never walking alone. A verse she opens randomly speaks exactly to her pain. A thought enters her heart at the perfect time.